From a parasitic monster that will make your skin crawl to a literal spaghetti monster caught floating in the depths of the ocean, here are 10 of the creepiest animals that live in the deep. Number 10. Cymothoa Exigua. Cymothoa Exigua, or Sea Exigua for short. This little critter is literally one of the most terrifying things that reside in our oceans. You may have thought the thumbnail for this video was of a strange fish with teeth in its face, but if you look closely, you will see that the teeth are not teeth at all. The fish actually has its tongue replaced by a terrifying parasite we like to call Sea Exigua. This parasite works by literally replacing the tongue of whichever fish it infects and then stealing the fish's food. This is the only known parasite currently on our planet that literally replaces the organ of an animal. What's really fascinating is that not only does the organism replace the tongue with its own body, but it then becomes a fully functioning tongue that the fish can use. The fish doesn't even understand what's going on. Sure, the fish gains a tiny bit of weight, but it hardly even notices the parasite living in its mouth. Yikes! To be specific, Sea Exigua is a type of parasitic isopod. It enters the fish through its gills. Then the parasite uses its claws to cut off the blood supply to the fish's tongue. The lack of circulation will eventually force the tongue to atrophy and fall off on its own. The unfortunate fish is then left with no tongue in its mouth. The parasite replaces the missing tongue, and it then enjoys its new home inside the mouth of the fish, eating whatever food the fish catches. It's actually a pretty decent life for a malicious parasite. Number 9. Johnson's sea cucumber. The Johnson's sea cucumber is certainly one of the creepiest animals in the depths of the big blue. It's difficult to really say what it looks like, other than a bright red sea worm with creepy white spikes growing off of it. It looks like a poisonous underwater caterpillar, but don't let the photos fool you. These creepy crawlies can grow to be around 1.5 feet long, much larger than any caterpillar, and they live in the deepest parts of the ocean abyss. Unlike some other sea cucumbers, swimming for this Johnson is limited. It actually uses its tiny tube feet to move along the dusty floor of the ocean, and the way it eats is rather fascinating. Little bits of fallen food will stick to it as it crawls through the dirt, and then it uses its weird tentacles to stuff all that extra food into its mouth. It's basically a slug vacuum cleaner that moves slowly across the floor of the ocean, picking debris out of the world's deepest and wettest carpet. Number 8. The Spaghetti Monster. You have probably heard of the Spaghetti Monster by now. There are hundreds of interesting people who belong to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster all across the world, many of them taking their driver's license photos with colanders on their heads. Members of the Church of the Spaghetti Monster can even be ordained to perform wedding ceremonies. And back in 2015, Live Science reported that the actual Spaghetti Monster was found floating across the surface of the ocean floor. There is no mistaking this beast for anything other than an upside-down bowl of spaghetti that has somehow gained intelligence and is now on the prowl in the deepest part of the ocean. But sorry to disappoint you, it's not actually a monster built from spaghetti. That would be cool though. The jellyfish-like creature was discovered swimming off the coast of Angola, videotaped by workers from an oil company about 4,000 feet deep. The creature was eventually identified as a siphonophore, closely related to jellyfish but totally unique. Siphonophores are colonial animals, meaning they are composed of many different multicellular organisms that work together in a giant colony that looks like one mass of spaghetti noodles. I wouldn't try eating one though. Number 7. Supergiant Amphipods. Amphipods are already gross. Supergiant amphipods are even worse. Normal amphipods are just a fraction of an inch long. They are tiny crustaceans that live in the ocean and go about their business in peace. But the supergiant amphipods that were recently discovered north of New Zealand are absolutely enormous, nearly 10 times bigger than their tiny counterparts. And they are super nasty. They look like the ugliest shrimp that has ever been pulled from the ocean. But where they were discovered is really fascinating. Scientists on an expedition pulled 7 of these pale and leggy ocean insects out of the Kermadec Trench, making them the deepest and largest specimens ever found. Very little is known about these huge crustaceans. Supergiant amphipods were first discovered off the coast of Hawaii over 100 years ago. So far as researchers understand, they are husky scavengers that live at the bottom of the ocean, feasting on dead carcasses. It's unclear why there are some amphipods that are just shy of an inch long and the supergiant breeds that are 11 inches long. It's creepy and bizarre. Number 6. The Crimson Jellyfish. The Crimson Jellyfish is by far one of the weirdest and disturbing jellyfish that lives at the depths of our oceans. It's also known as the Atolla jellyfish, and it's an extraordinary creature that has inhabited our planet for at least 500 million years. This jellyfish has no digestive system, no respiratory system, and no circulatory system. It doesn't even have a brain. It just kind of squiggles around and does what jellyfish do best, creep people out. But why is the crimson jellyfish on this list of creepiest animals that live in the deep? Probably because of its peculiar and spooky red colour. It also lives incredibly deep in the midnight zone of the ocean, nearly 10,000 feet down. There is no sunlight in this area of the ocean, and just wait until you hear about what this jellyfish does when it's threatened. In the absolute blackness of the midnight depths, the jellyfish is able to output a series of bioluminescent blue flares to scare off predators. It basically turns into the blaring red and blue light on top of a police car when something is trying to eat it. Pretty amazing considering it doesn't even have a brain. Number 5. Armoured Searobin. Number 5 on the list is the Armoured Searobin, which kind of looks like a demon spawn. It also looks like it could bite your foot off if you happened to step in front of its face. Luckily, these bizarre sea robins live very deep in the ocean, at around 1,000 feet, and they spend their days crawling along the sandy sea floor eating whatever comes their way. Luckily, these bizarre searobins live very deep in the ocean. If you think the armoured searobin looks freaky underwater, you should see it on dry land. Its ghoulish red skin and massive white eyes make it look like it just hatched from an alien cocoon. They use their weird pectoral fins to crawl along the ocean floor, and they have something known as bony scutes all over their bodies that acts as a type of primitive armour. On the underside, close to the mouth, they have a pair of barbels for sniffing out unsuspecting prey. These things are often quite long and elaborate, like the roots of a plant or a bit of a nerve cord waving around in the sea. While not dangerous to humans in the slightest, the armoured searobin is still a creepy deep-sea animal that I'd rather not have staring at me from my dinner plate. Number 4. Emperor Shrimp. You might say that every shrimp is nightmarish. The next time you take a shrimp ring out of your freezer, just take a look at the weird pink things on your plate. You're basically eating underwater beetles, only weirder. But if I had to choose one weird deep-sea shrimp, it would definitely be the emperor shrimp. It's a tiny odd critter, only about 3/4 of an inch in length. But what makes it really unusual is that it's a symbiotic animal. This means that the emperor usually develops a relationship with another creature, such as a sea cucumber, to increase its chances of survival. The shrimp will then live on the animal, thereby being protected by predators, and it will feast on any parasites that try to take root on the host animal. It's a win-win situation. The shrimp literally spends its life running up and down whichever animal it's occupying, constantly foraging for food on its flesh. Plus, it kind of looks like a wet salamander with too many legs. There are lots of people who keep emperor shrimps as pets in a reef or home aquarium. I think I'll just stick to having dogs, thank you. Number 3. The Coffinfish. Most people would say that this fish definitely belongs on this list of creepy ocean dwellers, but there are some who find it sort of cute. Which one are you? The coffinfish belong to a group of deep-sea anglerfishes, like the one in Finding Nemo. They come in several different forms, including the furry coffinfish, the pencil coffinfish, and the red shoe coffinfish. The red shoe looks significantly freakish with its dreadful red eyes, flesh-coloured skin, and horseshoe-shaped head. Most species of coffinfish live pretty deep underwater, at least 6,000 feet below the surface, though some have been found in much shallower waters. They don't grow to be that big, only about 20 centimeters or so. Coffinfish use sensory canals within the prominence line on their head and back to detect movement of any fish nearby. These are ambush predators, who mostly feed on other fishes and crustaceans. They sit and wait patiently, using the nifty fishing rod that grows out of their heads to lure unfortunate fish close to their mouths. When they're not using their lure, they can fold it into a small pit located between their eyes, kind of like putting the broom back in the closet. Coffinfish can be found all around the world on the muddy and rocky ocean floors. Even more strange is that the coffinfish doesn't really swim. It mostly flounders over the sea floor using its stubby arms like broken canoe paddles. There are about 10 species of coffinfish, and each one is creepier than the last. Number 2. The Eyeless Dolphin. Dolphins are some of the friendliest animals in the ocean. But what about an eyeless dolphin? Nothing is more shocking or even disturbing than the eyeless dolphin that washed up on a Mexican beach. According to the report from The Sun, fishermen who discovered this nightmare creature couldn't even identify it. They claimed it probably came from an extreme depth near the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. The stranded creature looked like a mix between a dolphin and an eel. It had no flippers, no eyes, and a mouth packed with needle teeth. It also had a tail reminiscent of a moray eel. Nobody has seen one of these creatures before, and nobody has seen one since. Are there more of them? Or is this just a poor mutated dolphin? And would it have been as friendly as other dolphins? Scientists don't know what to call it. Some people don't even know if it's real, and you definitely don't want to encounter one of these on your next beach trip to Mexico. Number 1. Translucent Sea Salp. The translucent sea salp looks like a jellyfish that took on the form of an actual fish. It's a totally weird creature that was discovered off the coast of New Zealand by a fisherman. According to the guy who brought the translucent sea salp onto his boat, it felt like jelly and there was nothing to see inside of it in the way of organs except for a small orange blob near what might have been its tail. Suffice to say, the fisherman had no idea what to think. It wasn't until scientists saw the photos that they identified this creepy deep-sea animal. It's known as a salp, and according to the National Marine Aquarium Director, they are found in extremely cold seas, mostly in the Southern Ocean. They move by filtering water through their jelly bodies, and they feed on plankton and other tiny pieces of organic matter. In reality, salps are just another form of strange life that scientists don't know everything about. There are many creepy things floating around in the dark depths of our world, and the translucent sea salp is the perfect example of just how weird, unnatural, and slimy things can get. Which of these creepy sea monsters grossed you out the most? Let me know how you feel about the depths of the ocean in the comments below, and be sure to come back soon for another great video. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button before leaving the page to stay up to date with all the most fascinating animal videos.